before we get started, you guys have a bunch of QR codes at your tables, and these are resources that you can have at your disposal. I will print more so you guys can have it around in your classes. It's very resourceful. It's something that comes on your phone that you can look at like in real time and actually apply it. And because a lot of the times I go to PDs, I didn't want to just give you guys a bunch of paper, so I figured if you guys can have a QR code, scan it, and it'd also be pertinent because the information that I'm covering will go over some of those things that are on those QR codes. Okay, so this, as you see here, ADAPT is the System of Care's motto. We like to adapt, and you guys that work at a DAEP, you guys are consistently adapting to the new kids that you guys get monthly, weekly, or whatever, because you guys get them coming in and leaving out. So this restorative session is meant ideally to be 90 minutes. I understand some people do have to leave early. I understand that. I won't feel slighted or disrespected if you do have to do that. It's okay. We understand that life happens, and that's fine. All right, so moving along, in Spring Branch ISD, these are our core values, and these are the core characteristics. I'm not going to go into details with it. Just make sure that you embody these things. And every training that you guys get is centered around these themes. You have to be for every child. You have to be collective as a group, as a collective, to embody that collective greatness. The spirit, be limitless in your curiosity, meaning don't limit yourself and say, I can't do this. Try new things. Get outside of your comfort zone, because that's okay, because you're not here to make yourself feel comfortable. You're here to put forth the best practice to make sure that you get the best outcomes from your students. And of course, the moral compass. We have to do things to make sure that we're working with integrity. All right, session outcomes. Participants will understand the purpose of restorative practice. And we kind of touched on it, me and Verly, we kind of talked about certain restorative practices last time, but we're going to take a deeper dive into it and actually do a circle toward the end of this session. Learn key restorative strategies for alternative campuses. Practice restorative conversations in circles. And of course, identifies ways that we can implement those practices in your classrooms. All right, moving along here. This is my agenda. You don't need to see that. So what does the data say, right? So every time that we do presentations as System of Care, we want to be a data-driven district. So we're not just doing things just because we feel like it. We do things because the data supports it. So you have researchers, you have districts and organizations who have all come together, like the RAND Corporation. You have the UCLA Civil Rights Project, and you have the international, I forgot that group. Therefore, it's the International Institute for Restorative Practices. Those three organizations have come together to collect information on what restorative practices are doing on campuses and are doing for people. So this is where I got my data from. And it talks about 6 major pillars of how restorative practices actually helps not only you, it's not only helping you, but it's also helping that student. Okay, so first you have restorative practices reduce suspensions. We all know that, right? Because suspensions is more punitive. They're not being instructed, they're not being in a classroom environment, so they're not learning the social skills that they need. They are at home where they probably want to be, probably getting into other things that they shouldn't be getting into, and perhaps the safest place that they probably were at to begin with was probably in your classroom. But when they're suspended, we don't have control of what they're doing outside of the confines of our classroom. All right? Second, what does the data say? Improvements in school climate and relationships, right? That's the key of it. The foundation of everything is the relationship. So it does improve that because you're not going at it with the traditional approach. But luckily for you guys here at this campus, you guys have the luxury of having that small student to teacher ratio in the classroom where you guys can provide that undivided attention to certain kiddos. But imagine the gen ed setting where a classroom teacher has 30 plus kids, and that one kid needs that extra attention. Sometimes it's not feasible for one teacher to meet one child's need while abandoning 29 other kiddos. But in y'all's cases, you guys have the setting for that, so it shouldn't even be an option here at a DAEP, whether we do restorative practices or not. It's not an option. It should be mandatory. It should be a must. It's not, oh, we do it when we feel like it. No, you should be always doing it. All right? What does the data say? Reduction in discipline disparities. Of course, we understand that one major reason districts adopt restorative practices is to address racial disparities. And it's true. All right, it's the elephant in the room that a lot of people don't want to address, but it's true, is that Black and Hispanic students historically receive more suspensions and referrals than white peers. It is what it is, right? So we have to make sure that those restorative practices are decreasing those discipline disparities. School implementing restorative practices see reductions in these disparities, though results vary depending on the fidelity or the implementation of it. So it all depends on the adults and how rigorous you guys are in doing it, right? What kind of energy are you putting forth towards it? Is it a checklist thing, or are you doing it because you passionately care about that? What does the data say? Academic impacts are mixed, but often positive, meaning that you may not get the best positive academic outcomes, but it's mixed. But if you have kids that are safe in your classroom and the misbehaviors are going down, you're more likely going to get better positive outcomes academically because they are behaving, they're listening, they're getting their work done. Okay? Again, what does the data say? This is the fifth pillar out of the six. Implementation quality determines success. All right? So how you guys implement that is going to dictate the success of restorative practices. If you're inconsistent in doing that, then you're going to get inconsistent outcomes. If you are consistent in doing that, you not only get better, but the kids that walk into your classroom know exactly what they're going to come into, because we are coming into a restorative environment, and we know what we're going to get. Last but not least, restorative practices work especially well in alternative and high behavior schools, and this is what that is. So again, restorative practices is not something that's optional here. It should be something that's happening all the time, and with each other. With your principals to the teachers, teacher to teacher. We should always have that restorative mindset at play. Okay, so opening reflection activity. I want you guys to give you guys a couple of minutes. I want you guys to turn and talk. You're gonna, what behaviors do you struggle with the most at this campus? And I think we kind of talked about that before. What typically happens after that behavior incident? And does the consequence change the behavior long term? Remember, we're thinking long term. A lot of the times we're trying to put out the fire immediately. And sometimes immediacy leads to more problems at the end. It's easy to suspend a kid. You get them out of your hair, they're out of there. You cause trouble, you're out. Go, bye. Long term, that doesn't do anything. So we have to factor that in. Share out with the group. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes. These are the questions. What behaviors do you guys struggle with the most at this campus? What typically happens after the behavior incident? Does the consequences that you guys have here, is it helping them long term, or is it like a short term thing? And share out with the group in about 2 minutes. I'll give you guys that much time to turn and talk. Thank you.
They come here and say, hey, 30 days. My feet. I've been doing this for a while. I just
Let's have about 1 more minute.
Yeah, I'm with your history so I'm almost done. Hands up.
All right, I heard somebody say there's no meaning behind it. So let's share out. Let's share out. Who wants to share out about what you guys turned and talked about? I heard somebody say there's no meaning behind it. There's no meaning behind what?
Well, one of our things was the stuff that,
Yeah,
that we do here, they don't do it on the home campus.
Oh.
So they come back, they think this is a 30-day vacation from their home campus. So they get caught at their home campus, they're gonna come over here for 30 days, get their grades up, and go back to their home campus.
Which is a conversation that we've had here, because it is, if we're doing something restoratively here, I think it works for the kid here, but what's problematic is the person that they've had the issue with, or whatever the issue was on the home campus, that's really where things started and really reside.
Okay.
So we're doing things here, but the partnership from the home campus side is kind of where things need to be short.
And we're gonna get into that too. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that connection piece.
Sum it up, but it's just like, what is restorative justice supposed to look like on campus? Even though we've been in those meetings.
Right.
Here as a program, it can work in a fitting setting like this.
Yes.
But how does it magnify on a larger scale
Yeah.
at the home campus?
Yeah. We're talking about that earlier.
talked about
Yeah.
that, yeah.
And that's the $1 million question, because we have our own little theory of what we think needs to happen. But yeah, you're right, especially when these kids are going back. Like, how do we set them up for success? Because a lot of the times they want to be back here. We don't want you to be back here. We
They
want
want
you.
to be back.
Yeah.
We don't love them, we love them because they
Well,
need good grades.
Well, to piggyback on that, a lot
Yeah.
of times, I mean, we have set them up for success, and we give them the tools they need. It's just,
Yeah.
what about the other side?
The other
What
side,
about
where they're doing,
tools
yeah.
for them to,
Yeah.
meet that individual in the middle, like, there's been change, and there's been progression on one side.
Right.
Why hasn't there been progression and grace given for the other side?
Other side. You're absolutely right. You're
And
absolutely
is
right.
everybody on the other side willing to look at the child?
They say that they're willing, but again, their dynamics is different because they have so much attention that's put on pacing, the academic curriculum. They have 30, 20 other kids to worry about. It's like more and more and more, and they may have other kids that are bubbling up that may be on the verge of going to DAEP, so they're trying to manage that too. So it's just so much more for that one teacher to handle. And sometimes these campuses don't have the resources like you guys have to attend to their needs. And that's why that transition plan with them going back is critical. But even if you have the plan, you still have to have the adults that actually put forth the effort to do it. And then there's no accountability piece sometimes with certain principals, because we do work for a decentralized district. Sometimes principals are like, oh, this is what we do here. Yeah, you're talking this restorative stuff, but this is, we follow this. If the kid does this, we suspend them. They do this, they go by the book. The restorative practice part, they don't really try to implement it. Then you have some principals that are open to that. They're like, yeah, come on, Mr. Rowe, teach our first grade team or third grade team or seventh grade team or eighth grade team how to do X, Y, Z. And they're willing, they're open for that, but not all campuses are open for that. It's almost like we're sending them away to get a break. We know we're getting them back, but we're not trying to do anything restorative at all. We're just gonna just treat him or her like we treat everybody else.
You definitely have room for growth in that piece of that transition, but what I have noticed is when they leave here, you guys hold the relationships.
Yeah.
So the relationship is still with you, even though they're being put in that environment, and that becomes the hard piece. Sometimes they don't have relationships with you.
Correct.
And so when they leave, their relationship is still here with you.
Yeah.
It hasn't been established in that answer.
Right, so, and that is very true, because being a first timer here this year, I see that the anxiety rests with whatever is over at the home campus.
Yeah.
Right, the relationships of students have come here, they've developed a rapport in this short amount of time with staff here. But the anxiety rests at the home campus because that's where the problem and the issue was. And that's the place that they have the anxiety to go back to because there is no restoration.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what the solve is.
I agree, that's still
I don't know what the solve is. Like I've been beating around, I don't know what the solve is.
And yeah, we were just having the conversation about that, especially when for them the solution is let me get back. So I'm gonna do what I need to do to get back to a place of safety.
Yeah. All right, thank you guys for sharing. So moving along here, what are restorative practices? Basically, these, I'm sure you guys know what these are: repair and harm. All right, restoring relationships. Again, building accountability and strengthening community. That's what basically restorative practices are. The traditional approach is I just put a little example here. Who broke the rule? What punishment do they deserve? You know, when I went to school, that's how it was. It was no PBIS, it was no restorative. Like, what did you do wrong? You're going to get a consequence for that, right? That's the old traditional approach. Restorative approach, who was harmed, so something was done. And who was harmed denotes community, meaning that you're doing something that's outside of yourself. It's not all about a rule that you broke per se, but when you broke a expectation or you broke a routine or procedure in my classroom, you actually caused something, there's a ripple effect that occurred in the classroom. It caused a major classroom disruption. You're stopping your other peers from learning. Like, it has to be bigger than them. So when you're asking who was harmed, you're taking that kiddo from a myopic or me-centric perspective to start to think that, okay, my behavior is not just affecting me, it's affecting the adult, it's also affecting my peers as well. So who was harmed is a good question to ask. What needs to be repaired? Something needs to be repaired. We need to do this differently, right? We need to talk about this. And of course, how do we prevent it again? That's the restoration cycle. Who was harmed, right? How can we fix it? And how can we make sure that we are proactively putting things in place so we don't have this again? That's what restoration is about. However, this does seem a little longer. This is shorter. This is more convenient. This doesn't fix anything. This is longer. It may cause you to talk a little bit more and take a little bit more time out of your day, but this is more effective. Sometimes a longer road traveled is the best road travel. Because trying to take those shortcuts can get you in a lot of trouble because long term it's not doing anything. They're just coming back more gassed up. They're coming back more nuanced and they're becoming more clever in how to continue to do this, because this is what you keep focusing on. Punitive, 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 punitive. Right? Because how is it that when I talk to campuses, this is a real story, at Spring Forest Middle School, where kids are talking about DAEP in the sense that, oh, it's a place you go because you're really, really bad. In their head, it's like, I don't want to go there because it's bad, but then when they come here, they're getting this. But when they get this, I like it. It just means that their campus they need to adopt this. Their campuses, they're more doing this, the traditional approach. I think that's the disconnect.
It is, Max, but I think, like, in fairness,
Yeah.
I'm here now, so.
I know.
I'm loving the DAP, but in fairness to home campuses, I think
Yeah.
the difference is it's a numbers game, right?
Yes.
So when they're here at the DAP, we have, the number of middle schools we have. We have about 60 or so high schoolers right now.
Yeah.
Well, we gotta do some multiplication,
Yeah.
right? Because on a home campus right now, Stratford, I can speak for them,
Yeah.
they're sitting between 24 and 2,500 kids.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the masses, the numbers, I'm not making any excuses
I know you
because I
yeah.
do still feel like as adults that have decided that this is going to be your calling, not just where I get resources, but if this is going to be my calling and this is what I'm going to do, then I'm going to go about it in a way where I am really working to develop relationships and rapport with students,
Yeah.
right? Because I know you really can't teach the kids really until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
Right?
If I'm still operating from that, but I think
Yeah.
from a home campus standpoint, when you start to, and again, it's no fault of their own, but I think when you're on a campus and you start to have 30 and 35 kids in the class, and then you start to see, you get one conference period, and you got all the other sections, and you end up with over 180 kids in a, totally, it becomes a challenging thing
It is.
to think that you're gonna develop the same capacity
Yeah.
that we're able to do here,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That's why it's a system thing too. Like coming from the top down, it has to be something that's intentionally infused within the daily practice of everything that they do, being intentional. It has to be a system-wide approach. Just like we have PBIS school-wide systems and they have their matrices and stuff like that. The restorative aspect has to be something that's preached, that's done everywhere, right? But I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Restorative is more transformational, where the bigger the kids go through at the home campus.
Right.
It seems more transactional.
So what at their campus is more, go a little bit deeper. What do you mean by transactional at their campus?
It's more of a contract. It's more of a short-term contract, where transformational is long-term.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're giving them long-term skills here.
Here, yeah.
And I say with the program here, what we're doing is we're trying to eliminate the stereotype of that.
Yeah.
But my biggest fear is in the future, since we're more going toward the AI approach,
Yeah.
where we're gonna start depending more on AI to pretty much give the kids consequence. And there's not gonna be any room for restorative justice because we're gonna be so dependent on what the kid has done, that's gonna follow him is, okay, well, based on the data here,
I see what you're saying. That's what you're saying.
citrus is pretty much.
It takes away the restorative piece
Yeah,
and just goes
it's
back.
almost like the movie,
Yeah.
Minority Report.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we're doing a Minority Report on students right now, based on the direction of
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you said looking at their data, because they're not looking at their data. They're not looking at it from that aspect. They're just looking at what feels safe, where I have my connections, we're looking at the data and how it affects you, how it affects your education. For them, it's different. For the actual students.
And you guys already know this. So this is preaching to the choir here, right? Relationships. You guys know that. Kids feel respected. They feel heard. They feel valued. And I always, when we go on the gen ed campuses, I tell teachers all the time, like whenever you're doing something in the classroom, involve your students. They're like, what do you mean? I'm saying, that's what I mean, involve them, meaning that when you talk, let them talk. They're like, what do you mean? I say, exactly that. Have them repeat certain things to you. Just because elementary kids do it, middle school kids can do it. You know, when a kid answers a question correctly, have the whole class clap. They say, why are you doing that? It's wasting time. It's not wasting time. It's called classroom engagement. You're capturing the classroom and you're building a sense of classroom community, but while still being restorative in the sense that you may have a kid that's reluctant to answer questions, but they know that if I answer a question correctly, my whole class claps for me. And even if I may get it wrong, I may have a cue that even if a kid gets a wrong answer, we may give like a snap or something to say, no, good effort, good try. But if they get it right, we give a clap. Like certain things like that, building that classroom community, not singling kids out. Because what I see happening a lot is that I have a curriculum to follow, I have a pacing guide, I'm supposed to do this for 10 minutes, and everyone is so boom, 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 and they're forgetting about the students. And I said this today at Ridgecrest Elementary, and it doesn't matter whether it's elementary or high school or secondary. I tell people all the time, you know your content. You know your content. I'm not worried about that. You didn't get this far in your career by not knowing your content. You know your content. But you don't know your subject. They're like, what do you mean by that? Your subject are your students. Study them. Master them. You know your content, so don't get buried in your content. Study them. Know what their quirks are. Know what they like. Speak their language. I have busy kids that like to move around. Well, have them help you out with things. Involve them. Give them choice. Little things like that doesn't really require you to be an expert on anything. It's just making them feel like they're involved in the process. Okay? Core restorative strategies, restorative language, restorative questions, and you guys have those resources here. If you scan the QR code, you'll have them. And I'm going to print out more so you guys can have them around on the campus. You can just scan it and just have it right there at your disposal. At conflict mediation, real story, Spring Forest Middle School, 2 kids get into an argument in class. It gets so disruptive. The art teacher writes the students up. The students come to the principal's office. They see me walking, I'm trying to leave. They stop me, hey, Mr. O, what do we do about this? But in my head, I'm like, I gotta go. But I said, okay. I turn around, I'm like, what is this? The kid that was on a behavior plan, that we had on a behavior plan, he was one of the kids that had the argument with another kid in the classroom. So they're telling me, well, this violates his behavior contract. I said, and I read the referral out, and I said, this is not something that should be written up. That's just conflict. Nobody cursed. There was no mutual combat. There was no fight. It was just a major classroom disruption. What I did, real story, I basically took our conflict mediation script that we have, and I basically printed it out. I gave it to the counselor. She says, what do you want me to do with it? I said, I want you to give it to the teacher. And she looked at me like, why don't you give it to the teacher? But in my head, everything is chained. They need to know that you are the counselor. If they get it from me, I'm an outsider. They don't know me like that. They know you're the counselor. So give that to the teacher and have that teacher spend time with those 2 boys and go over this script. It was basically sentence stems. Basically, you don't have to be an expert. Just ask the questions. You do it one at a time, and she did it. Come back. I came back on a week later. We had the data meeting with the students because we have our data meetings. Any kid that's on a behavior plan, we look over the data every time that we meet. And I asked the kid, I said, the kid that you had conflict with, this is a way for me to find out if things are being done. Because you can ask teachers, they could either probably give you an excuse that makes an outright lie and say they did it and then didn't do it, but the kids won't lie. I said, hey, did you and the teacher talk about what happened in class? He was like, oh yeah. She sat down with you individually and talked about it? He says, yeah. Did she sit down with him? Yeah, we squashed it, we're good now. Boom. That solved it, right? I met with the teacher and she's looking at me like, I said, yeah, you have the power, because what you've done, when you write them up to go, you're telling them that I don't have the capacity to deal with what you guys are doing, get out. But when you bring them back in, of course you document what happened. I'm not saying don't document, you document, but not everything should be a referral. It made her feel like, oh, I can handle these things in my classroom. Yeah, I said it. You're the principal of your classroom. Now, of course, if something is done egregious, something that's worthy of being written up, or you've done consistent things, you follow the flow chart, because not everything should be a write-up. That's something that could have been handled, but she handled it, but she felt good about it. So she's like, I got this. I'm like, you got it. She just needed the tools. She just felt like, okay, I don't know what to do. Let me just write this up and send them to the office. But she handled it in the classroom. So conflict mediation is key, especially in the secondary level. A lot of times girls are being mean to each other. They're fighting. Those are opportunities to be restorative, not to be punitive. I'm going to write you guys up for arguing. You guys were about to get into a fight. I'm going to write you up. No. Document it. Conflict mediation, because guess what? Those two girls are still going to come back in your classroom. You got to deal with it, because if you don't, it'll fester and it'll build up. All right? Restorative language examples. Again, what's going on right now? Who might be affected by this? How can we fix this situation? These are things that you ask students when you sit down with them. Restoration is not something that is just basically talking. At the end of the day, this is just a guide for you to build relationships. Because when you're doing restorative practices, you're asking questions for them. It's a dialogue. They're talking back with you. The questions you're asking is to dig deeper. And as they see that you're digging deeper, you're building connections inevitably because you're sitting down with them. I tell principals all the time, they'll tell me this. They'll say, Mr. O, I'm the one that suspends them. I'm the one that sends them to ISS. But when they see me, they're so happy. You know why they're happy to see the principal? Not because the principals are nice, because the principals are the ones handing out the consequences. It's because when the principal sits down with little Johnny, they're asking these questions. What happened in class? They're asking questions. So the students end up building a relationship with principals where they're supposed to be building relationships with the teacher. So the teacher can do the same thing the principal does. Just document it, say that you went over this. This is part of your documentation. I went over restorative practices. I did call the mom to let them know what happened. It shows that you are the executive decision maker in your classroom when you handle things that way. And I'm not, of course, you guys don't do that because you guys are better with dealing with the behavior here in this dynamic, but I'm just talking about the things that I hear from teachers when I talk to them. I see referrals all the time in Skyward. I'm like, this is not, we talk about it in the office. I'm like, oh, talking too much, playing. I'm like, what? And you have these kids that have 40-something referrals, and half of them shouldn't be referrals. And then sometimes, be honest with you guys, they're building up cases so they can sometimes get kids out of there to come here. And sometimes I'm the one that kind of comes in there to say, okay, no, we're going to put this in place to make sure that the kid gets the help they need at the home campus and not come here. All right, so when you're doing restorative questions, again, ask students what happened, so on and so forth. What were you thinking at the time? These are just restorative examples, restorative questions. Restorative conversation practice. So you guys are going to scan this QR code on the screen. You guys should get in pairs, or you don't have to get in pairs, but I think if you guys can pair up, if that matches, maybe one of you guys may end up having 3 to a group. So in pairs, one person plays the teacher, one person plays the student. All right? Student refuses to follow instructions. Use restorative questions to guide the conversation. Now, you're not going to remember those restorative questions, but guess what? You have the QR code that you can scan, and it gives you a list of restorative questions that you can use. To make sure it works. I know before I left, it worked.
I was going to say, I'm giving the slides, but we don't have to.
Yeah, it works.
It's the same one as
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, yes and no. This, yeah, yes and no. So I added good morning. So you're gonna scroll to where it says.
Scroll to where it says
restorative questions cheat sheet. So when you scan this, because this is the scenario that's given to you, and if you scan this, it should take you to restorative practice for teacher, restorative language, and it also has restorative questions cheat sheet. I think it's the 3rd slide, or the third slide. Student refused to follow instructions.
Yep, there it is. What happened?
Well, yeah, but
Where would you go? I went out. I heard you ask that one.
it's a big compliment.
Yeah, this is this.
What happened is not that. You said what? What did they say?
Oh, Lord.
Not the way it's gonna play out.
It's not how it goes. Miss, where's my phone? It was on the shelf yesterday, but I said, it's not
He
here.
took my folder. I know he took my folder.
I was like, so what happened?
Or the, we can't find it, I want to make it. You got this?
Somebody put on my folder.
Accept your request.
What about my work that's
Why'd you take my folder? You threw my folder away. Because you hate me.
You throw a lot of logic in my statements. I am so sorry you feel that way. I don't know how to.
Why'd you put my folder in somebody else's?
I can't wait to tell them. I can't wait to tell them.
Miss Moore, why don't you put it by class by subject? I got that. You know what I mean? I would say, I would say it's here, you know,
Okay, so we're gonna. Did everybody go through it?
Anybody else?
Sure.
Did it feel awkward and weird?
No.
Nah, right? It should. It should,
It's
right?
very kind of Jewish.
Yeah, dude.
Because we got the scenarios of the missing folders. And it's, Miss, where's my folder?
Yeah.
Well, let's look. Well, I put it here yesterday.
Wow.
Okay, well.
Take a breath.
Take a breath, yeah.
Just a second.
And Felicia, I like what you said earlier about when you ask questions like this, like the restorative cheat sheet questions, it does something. Can you speak to that a little bit?
That's it.
I like the way you just said it. Yeah.
I said also, what you're also doing is teaching them a skill. So
Yes.
when you create that habit of asking them these questions, this is a skill that they're also learning to internalize and deal with conflict themselves. So keeping it as developing that culture of being restorative to slow things down and have them think about their actions and have these questions at the forefront. When you just get in the habit of asking, they know what questions you're about to ask.
Yeah.
And they get to the habit of that, they now internalize this as a skill. So they're at the same time learning a long-term skill that they could use when they take a moment and think about a conflict, where they just take a moment to sit down and kind of think about it. So I like the fact, because I don't think, with everything moving so fast and attention like this, sometimes they don't get the skill building of how to reflect on something and maybe rethink some things and look at it from different perspectives. Yes.
I know this situation may not be able to happen in every setting, but I was talking with a certain team, and some students had a conflict, and I did it's kind of like a courtroom version of it, where I had a student, he had a lawyer, and they were able to tell the lawyer, and when I realized that they were able to tell like the lawyer person, whoever was defending them,
Right.
more of the information, just kind of more on a personal level, and they were asking more questions that maybe I wouldn't have asked about the situation, because they want to present the best case for the defendant. And when I realized that both sides gave a chance to object and kind of like,
Yeah.
courtroom scenario.
Yeah.
And, you know, they were taking notes and kind of just, we have to kind of remember, if you want to object, you kind of rebuttal
somebody,
you know,
right.
Put down, okay, this is this, I want to rebuttal what they said, and I'm gonna come back, and I was like, okay, this kind of works out.
Yeah.
So they were like really like into it and
Yeah.
found out the situation was more than, and they were like willing to share more than if I was just like, hey, tell me what happened. What did you do wrong? They were like, they
Yeah.
want to plead and make sure that they know, well, this is my
This
side.
is my side of the
Say
story.
everything happened, and
Yeah.
I didn't say this because of that and because of these other things. Like, oh, okay, so you're gonna tell me all this stuff you wouldn't have said if I just cornered you by yourself.
Yes, yeah.
I like that.
I like that.
But they like to come up with
You give them
solutions.
ammunition on how to get out of a bad situation and answer the right questions.
No, because
The reverse psychology.
with the objection, I still was the judge, and I still was the
He said, "Don't get it twisted. I'm still a judge, right?"
I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm noting what you're saying, but
Right.
I'm still the judge.
Yeah.
And,
I like
you know,
that.
I may not rule in your favor, but
Right.
you can still speak
Yeah.
the case, and I'm listening to you.
You're giving them a voice,
Give
right?
them a chance to kind of speak. And then, when I realized that, like, I was thinking kind of negative too, sometimes, like, I don't know you to really think this outside of this, just back, like, I don't want you to think that you're criminal, and like,
I know what you
I was like,
mean.
the fact that, like, you can talk to your lawyer, and like, okay, this is what you're
Right.
doing, and what you're saying, and like, and then they learn, like, they're quiet, and
Mhm.
like, and let the other group speak.
Yes.
And then they let the other side, and they say, we're taking turns, like, mediating and talking about
Right.
this
That's
issue.
good.
Like, okay.
Yeah. It's a learned skill. That's good. You gave them that space to do that in your classroom. Yeah. All right. We don't have to go through this, but another scenario, small groups analyze scenario, says students use disrespectful language, like they're cursing in your classroom. Student refuse to do work. So these are all different types of behaviors that you'll see in the classroom, and you can just apply restorative practices to it. Remember, it's not about I'm going to do something punitive to make you understand how severe your behavior was. It's to the point where I know you've done this. Let's get to the bottom of why you're doing this, who you harmed, who was affected, things like that. It slows things down. And obviously, we keep saying that we're doing things for students, but you're actually doing this for yourself. Because this is only the way to regulate yourself when you apply restorative practices. Because you're restoring yourself back to equilibrium. When you're ticked off in that moment of impulse, when the student does something that gets on your last freaking nerves, the natural thing is just to react. We don't want reactions. We want responses. If you do this, you're actually helping yourself because now you're forced to think and ask questions. You diffuse the situation because now you're not coming at the student, you're having a conversation with the student that just offended you or did something in your classroom that was highly disrespectful. So, but when you're doing that, it still calms the situation because a calm adult equals calm student. A rowdy adult, you're gonna arouse the student as well. So you have to be very careful in how you deal with that, right? So everything that we're saying, we always talk about the students, the students, the students. It's also for you as the adult as well. Restorative practices helps the adult too. All right, again, another example, we don't have to do this because of time, we're already at 4:13. What helps you feel respected? So we're gonna do a restorative circle actually before we close, right? We're gonna do that. We're gonna make sure we do that. So what we're gonna do, we don't have any chairs to actually sit in a circle, so we're gonna just stand in a circle. If we can all get up.
So the restorative conversation for quick.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Can I ask a quick question before
Yes.
I hang up?
Yeah.
So on the restorative, like a question, this is kind of our script, and so we just finish time.
Yes.
We would go with this. Yeah, it's like when you have the square, so we go around, and we do this.
We repeat that, yes. Same thing.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Sorry,
All right. Oh, no, you're good, you're good. That was good, yeah. All right, so I don't have, that's, yeah, well, I'll just use my click, yeah. My clicker will be the talking piece, right? And so act like this is your classroom. And, I'm the teacher, you guys are the students, right? So when you do things like this that are unconventional in your classroom, no matter how small it is, whether you only have 5 or 6 kids, it's something that's out of the norm, but it's intentional. It's building community, it's building a sense of purpose, and they understand that there's some intentionality in what you're doing, and you're giving me a voice, but it's done in a structured way. So this is the talking piece that we have. Just gonna ask you guys some random questions, but that's relevant to your job. So I'm not gonna ask you questions like, while you talking in class, we're not doing that. We're gonna be actually make this real. Okay? So I'm gonna start first by talking. Remember, the circle norms is that the only person that talks is the person with the talking piece, right? We're gonna respect each other's opinions, and we're gonna speak from the heart. We're not gonna judge anybody in this, okay? So the first question is that I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna mention my name, and I'm gonna ask the first question to you guys, and also to myself. I'm gonna answer it, and I'm gonna pass it along, and we all do that, and we go so on and so forth. All right. So my name is Mr. O. Taylor. And what helps you feel respected in a classroom? So what helps me feel respected in the classroom is when my students are in front of me and they're displaying the characteristics that I've shown and modeled for them, right? So it's not that I want them to behave a certain way. It's because I've actually displayed that behavior in front of them, whether it's me practicing restorative practices, whether it's me greeting them at the door. If I see them doing that, then I know that they're mimicking me. And that's true. When I taught in middle school, I remember the things that I would do, the kids would repeat it. Because they knew what I was going to say anyway. They would repeat it to each other because that's the way I handled my classroom. So that's what makes me feel respected, because I know that I'm handling them with respect. So when I see them handling me with respect and handling each other, most importantly with respect, I know that they're taking what I've modeled for them, whether it's directly or indirectly, the way that I communicate with them. He can point to her.
What makes me feel respected in the classroom is if you walk in there and there's a little bit of noise because they're working on whatever it is that they should be doing, I would be, and what I like to see is the improvement or progress of the students. I like to see their reading skills go up. I want to see them doing the assignment. Not necessarily independently, but with support. And let's see, yeah, and listening.
My name is Miss Ann Martin, and what makes me feel respected in the classroom, not only are students following the rules, they're empathetic to my rules and make an effort to understand why they're there, not only just following out of compliance.
Good.
I'm Tyson, and what makes me feel respected is when they can explain the assignment to someone new or attentive, and they understand the rationale behind why. So if I have, for example, I don't like for them to get up out of their chair because it creates chaos, and if they understand why that happens, that means I've done what I'm supposed to do.
Mr. Dantzler, what makes me feel respected in the classroom is when the students are modeling behaviors appropriately, showing each other what the expectations are, whether it's behavior-wise or academic.
Ms. Moran, what makes me feel respected is that my students know when they walk, what the procedure, walking in procedures are. This is what we do. We do X, Y, A, B, C, D. And then we get some time to get done with my other group so I can work with it. Because I have 2 different groups in each class, almost 3. So I can start with one, and this group knows to get me on do now. This one knows to do this one, this one knows how to do this one. Yeah.
I feel respected because they should know what they are supposed to do when they come to my classroom instead of keep saying the same thing over and over and over. So make sure you sit down the assigned seats, make sure you work on your do now, implement, give me 5, you know, instead of going through, you should do this and this and this.
We're consistent.
Way around. High school has to be consistent.
Mr. White, our students in the classroom, when the students are inquisitive about the information that we're telling them. So they want to know more, stuff that's kind of like not written, they want to like, hey, tell me more about this. And so that's what
Mr. Blaze, I think what makes me feel respected is kids viewing me as a trusted adult that they can come and talk to, whether they're airing a grievance or just looking for an opportunity to chop it up with someone, because that happens from time to time. But then also that they feel around me safe enough to know that they can come and disclose, something, air a grievance or whatever else, and know that I'm gonna take an opportunity to listen to them to then figure out what we need to do to address it.
Obviously, worry and what makes me feel respected is also following through routines, as well as being intentional in the classroom, like actually attempting the assignment and being present.
You can be there, not be there.
Right.
Coach Fitz, feel respected when a kid can come in, they feel safe, and they feel that they can be themselves and they can be authentic within the gym. It's a safe haven for them to do the things that not only they're supposed to do, but they can build themselves and build their character as well, not only physically but mentally and spiritually.
Good. And what I heard collectively, everything is that you guys basically feel respected when the work you're putting in, you're seeing something being reciprocated back in return. Because at core, you're teachers, right? But you're also relationship builders and relationship starters. So when you see behaviors that are being modeled in a pro-social way, it makes you happy, right? When they're doing work, it makes you happy. Whether they're doing it right or wrong, but they're trying. Because as a teacher, I remember when I used to be in the classroom, I would take it personally if my kids, if I felt like they weren't learning. I'm like, man, I'm getting a paycheck, but I'm not really teaching them. Because I have kids. I have my own kids. I want them to be in front of teachers that actually care that my daughter and son learn. So I always feel like the universe is watching. So I feel like if I'm cheating a kid out of their education, I feel like somewhere down the line someone's gonna cheat my own kids. So I always had that like in my heart. So what I hear you guys saying is that when you see these things happen, it makes you feel good. Now, we're at 4:22. I'm not even gonna do the last one. I'm gonna end with this. What this little circle, and we only asked one question. But when you do things like this in your classroom and you're focused on things that are relevant to your age group, because I talked about respect because we're teachers in the classroom and stuff like that. But if you're talking about things that you've gathered data and you've understood that certain things are happening in your classroom, just do a little 2-minute circle. You're connecting with them. You're giving everybody a voice. And when everyone sits in that circle, there's something that's powerful in the circle. And I think years ago, I did were you there at that PD that I did about? Yeah, I mentioned how like a circle, the power of it. Yeah. It's real. Like when you sit in a circle, energy is real. Actually, you're not supposed to like sit in corners or squares because energy gets trapped in the corners, but a circle, it just keeps going. And there's something that happens, there's a spiritual component that happens when you're sitting in a circle where two or more are gathered and you guys are talking about a common theme. Whether you agree with somebody or disagree, but we're all coming collectively together to talk about this particular thing in my class that I'm leading because this is our classroom community. If you build that, that's a restorative practice. It's not punitive, no one's in trouble, everyone has a voice, and we feel like we are a collective. And one more thing, if they do something in that classroom, they're gonna understand that, I know Mr. O, I know so-and-so's gonna end up talking about this one day. Yeah, I will, we're gonna do a circle. And sometimes they're gonna try to avoid that because sometimes they don't wanna talk about those things, they don't wanna talk about it. So this is just an example of what a circle is like. You always have a talking piece, you state the expectations at the beginning that only people with the talking piece talk, and you just give them a chance to express themselves. Make it fun, make it light. Of course, this is just an example of what a circle looks like.
And you can start off with a warming question.
Yeah, you can start off with
something simple.
Simple.
What's your favorite this?
Yeah.
To kind of get them
Gotta
going,
break
and
the
then
ice a
go
little
into
bit.
a deeper question, and then end it with something real light
Something
again.
light, yeah.
So it kind of to warm them up.
Okay. Yeah, that's it, Mr. Blaze. I want to respect y'all's time. That's what I have for y'all. But you guys do have this. Those resources are on here. You guys also have restorative consequences, like different types of consequences that you can use in your classroom. You don't have to send kids to the office for anything.
We're just gonna collect these and we'll
Yes.
have them so we can have all of it.
No,
I thought, when Max said was the 2 or 3 are gathered, I said, boy, you about to go to the scriptures.
You about to go to the scriptures. Don't do that.